Live in a second. Hey, folks, welcome back. You're peeking behind the curtain already. You're taking a look. And if you're here and you're trying to figure out what's going on, we are talking today about this whole AI hype. And we're going to peek a little bit behind the curtain to take a look and see how it affects MeteorJS and JavaScript developers in general, or software developers like you. We are very focused on MeteorJS, and we're focused on JavaScript, but a lot of this is related to how it impacts you as a developer in general. So we're going to explore the news and see what's been going on outside in the world and the hype, the fear and doubt that we've been dealing with on this. And we're going to try to parse through some of the research that has been accumulated, put together, developed, whatever words you want to use with regard to that. And we're going to share that with you. But first, this is episode 92 of This Week in MeteorJS, a weekly newscast of the MeteorJS Dispatches podcast. My name is Alim Gafar, streaming to you live from New York City.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dvorak, coming to you live from Prague, Czechia.
And our colleague, Jan Küster, is trying desperately to get back on. He's having some technical difficulties. I think he's traveling, and we're trying to get him back onto the stage as soon as possible so that he can join us. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about this specific topic and some MeteorJS specific things today in the news. And so do we get going right now, Jan?
Yes, so let's get to it. Let's share the presentation. It's been
okay. Let's pop that up. Oh, by the way,
we have a funny.
We do have one thing that we need to remind you about. Actually, it's more about this for the first time, because I don't think we have talked about this at all in the past episodes. We are going to be changing our broadcast time and day from today at 9:30, Fridays at 9:30, which we've been doing for over 2 years now, or about 2 years now. We're going to be going to Thursdays at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Is that in Central Time? Is that 3:30 p.m. Central Time?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So if you're in Europe, that's a time that it's being run there. Central Time, that is, because I know they're different time zones. And in the United States and South America on the Eastern Time Zone, it's 9:30 a.m. So that's how we're going to be starting. And let me get this presentation up. So here we go.
And Jan has joined us.
It looks like Küster is back. Hi, Jan.
Maybe.
Your microphone is off right now. So
we'll see how things go technically.
Let's see if we can. There we go. Jan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear us. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're live right now, brother. So we're on. We're just getting started. So we just did the intro, and now we're going to get started with the news. And Küster, this is a little bit your baby. So let's get you in. Küster?
Can you hear me? So sorry, guys. The connection is total crap. Sorry for the wording.
That's okay.
I don't know where we at. Okay.
We are at Is the AI Bubble Leaking? That's all about you, brother. This is your show.
Yeah, this is my show, because I was talking about that in recent times, that I was really impressed by all these companies doing AI business and all that stuff, and then we start hearing companies getting not fulfilling their promises and all that, so there is so much money in there, and the question is behind all these AI companies and all these businesses and startups, is there really something behind all that, or is this just a pump and dump? So
yeah, I think there is that big question that comes up again and again, which is, how much of this is real, how much of this is hype. I think if all of us who have played with the generative models know that there's something there. The question is just how broad that application is, right? Now, we spent a little time looking at a lot of different articles, reading about this, following YouTube videos, and seeing things that companies have put out. And I think we have this big question, does it really make you more productive as a developer? And I think to some degree, and Storyteller, you have quite a bit of experience with this too, part of the answer is yes, right? So tell us about that a little bit. And then...
Yes, so it's, I would say it's very deceptive, to put it mildly, because we have to think, yes, and I'll cover that why, because we have to take into for who, and let me actually probably skip a little bit ahead, because here we have another MIT research that says that, yes, it makes you more productive, but when you actually read about it, what they were looking for and what they were doing, they were looking at, on tasks that include writing, that include marketing. So, and there it makes you more productive. But then we have a question here, in general, like in coding, because the promise is with AI that it will, make everything, and I mean, like literally everything better and faster, more productive. And I think everybody kind of says it feels faster, but and there's a lot of buts included, and a lot of asterisks and under the line. And in this article from Nordcraft, what they are saying, it has negative impact on stability and performance. And this is when it comes to coding and software development.
Wow.
So that's one thing. And another thing, just to kind of follow this up, there is from Meteor, there is a research. I've pulled up this chart where they were kind of comparing, what do people feel, or like developers feel, and estimate how it's going to, make them faster and everything. And we kind of see, when it comes to the, forecasts, from the economists, from the ML experts, from the developers themselves, which are, you can see, much more lower than, of course, the, ML experts are going to say that, but still there's like, it's going to be at least like 20% speed up. The reality though is that there is a slowdown, about 19%. Really? Like on average. So, and I've experienced this myself. If it's doing something, that then it usually is really not, speeding you up, especially if it's like in your domain expertise. On the other hand, when I wanted to do CSS or design stuff or design implementation, for the most part, it can go and do that, or it can get me started on things that that I don't want that I'm kind of lazy about, or that I kind of want to procrastinate on. So just giving it the basic things and giving me something that I can then kind of have a springboard on. That I've seen it worked. And kind of to get back to the productive thing, that what they saw in the studies, like the increases by 60%, but again, it's like to marketing. And a few years back, this is something that Jan wanted to mention. There was this study about the big MIT study about how it impacts your brain as well, which I think is something that we need to think about as well. And sadly, Jan isn't here to tell us, so I'll kind of summarize his points imperfectly. Is that what we saw there in the study is that when it comes to creative tasks, if you outsource the creative tasks to it, then it has a negative impact on you. But a lot of the repetitive tasks or things, it's kind of like 50-50. You kind of lose a bit of a muscle if you don't do some of the things that might seem repetitive, but they kind of keep you in shape. And at the end of the day, you could say that the brain is one big muscle in that. So that's kind of the summaries, you could say, of the studies that we have for this, and of course we'll have many more in the years of future on that.
Hard to, it's sort of like a wow moment, right? It's hard to comment on too much on this. I'm not quite sure where this is going. Hang on one second. All right.
Yeah.
So Küster was having some problems with, and he's popped back off again. And that note that he put in, I guess, was before he dropped off again. So he was trying to do connection using his phone. So I think we're going to have some difficulties with him being able to join us in this and continue forward with it. All right. Well, that MIT study is really eye-opening here, and that is a little concerning. So we're starting to get some real feedback, real.
Alim, I think the biggest takeaway here is that, and this kind of goes into the concept of the hype. Because of the hype, everybody has expectation that it's going to make them faster and better. And we are starting to see, and people who kind of didn't buy into the hype were warning that that's not necessarily the case.
I remember looking at one of these articles, and that we have gone through here, and one of the points that was made is that there is a distinction, or there's a misunderstanding, a sort of a gap between the C-level office, especially CEOs, about what they think they can accomplish with this and what their technical staff is able to do. And in some cases, because it's an LLM, they just assume we could just drop any information and we have data, we could just drop it in and it's going to give us the answers we need. And data engineering still is important. You put garbage in, you get garbage out. And that is still a big problem. And then, of course, the level of expectation that that CEOs have. And also, there is also this question about sort of the turnaround time. How quickly we can put these things into production and get answers from them, and and then losing interest when it doesn't happen fast enough, right? So there is, I think this has been true of most IT implementations, whether it's been business process reorientation, Web3, whatever you might want to call it, right? There have been many, many instances where we have seen this happen before. There is a lot of hype. The vendors are really, really pushing it out there. The VC firms need to recover the money that they've invested. And they've invested hundreds of billions of dollars into this technology. They're praying that this is the answer to everything. And we're always looking for that silver bullet, aren't we? So
that's kind of getting us to this thing. And a big part, I think, the thing is, it's not just, in the business world, but, the whole society will get impacted by this, or already is. And the big part is education. And though this article is bit of a clickbait because it doesn't really answer clearly the question it poses, but and I would still recommend to read it. It kind of highlights that we need to completely change our education, and this kind of started a little bit with Google and Wikipedia. It's much more easier to quickly get the information, the basic data, but then to analyze it and kind of figure out the critical thinking skills, that is something that AI is in many cases lacking, and sometimes by design, because sometimes kind of, and we've seen this a few days back when Grok went off the rails on Twitter, that if it tries to start inferring, from oftentimes bad data input, conclusions, it infers, as you said, as you said, bad data in, bad, results out. So that's where it comes to. But still, people are, and companies especially have like really jumped on this and forging ahead. And part of that is, as is usually the case, because every technology promises, improvements, everything faster, and that for businesses mean, if we improve productivity and everything, we'll need less people.
Yeah. Well, it's input costs, right? So whether it's materials or people, and most of our businesses today are knowledge-based businesses, and the biggest cost is people. And so the thing is, and because we have a knowledge economy today, the idea is that, each of us meat sacks, right, embody some specialized knowledge, some specialized skill that we bring to the table. And, companies have to take that into account. What is fascinating to me, by the way, is technology firms on the whole have multi-billion-dollar, even trillion-dollar valuations. And when you take into account what is the productivity per person in those companies, it's either in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in terms of profit that they make from each of these employees, and they still want to cut that down even further. And that to me is just, I don't know. There's something wrong with that thinking to me. But having said that, here's the thing, right? There are two places that you're going to make money as a company. You're either going to, increase your margins by cutting costs, or growth, right? And there are a couple of things that come to mind when I think about this. Either many of these companies just don't foresee a growth story for themselves in terms of going out there and getting more customers, and now they have to look inwards and say, all right, now we need to cut costs. Or they're looking at this from, I got to tell you, by the way, my own view on a company like Apple, for instance, that has hundreds of billions of dollars, I believe, on its books, right? Cash that it could allocate to different things. It has so much money available to it that there really isn't any more need to continue to do that. I mean, what are you doing with it? Are you returning it to the investors? Are you using it for new investments, creating new products and services, and so on? Like, what are you doing?
I think this kind of reminds me of, this kind of goes like my traditionalism of the like olden days, where a lot of the robber barons and captains of industry and the wealthy people, they were investing a lot of this extra wealth into cultural works, pieces of art, but also into public works. They were building theaters, they were building parks, all of that stuff. And that is not happening with these unbelievably wealthy companies. And I believe that actually for them to do that, that would correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that that could possibly go against their fiduciary duty. So they are legally, even if they wanted to, couldn't.
No, that whole thing is like the legal basis for this is bullshit, right? That was something that the Business Roundtable came up with. That said, that the duty that a company has is to its shareholders first. I don't believe that that's codified in law anywhere. That is something that just, it sounds great. It allows us to keep more of our money for ourselves and ignore the other stuff because it's hard to measure. This is a very easy thing to measure. I do not believe that's codified in law anywhere. So if somebody out there knows better and can point to some, U.S. code where it's listed, and then show me also where it's listed in the European, laws, I will back down on that. But I don't believe that that is a legal imperative anywhere. And if it is, it might be only a legal imperative in certain countries, but it's not universal. So to me, this is a bullshit way of, being able to, I will tell you, by the way, one of the things that I was first taught when I went to business school was that economics is amoral. There is no moral code binding it whatsoever, which I think, is very telling in terms of how business people are indoctrinated, right? Morality has no place in this. Whereas when you take a look at The Wealth of Nations, for instance, that's written by, remind me who the name is.
Was it Douglas Adams?
Adam Smith.
Okay.
It is, there is a moral foundation in that entire treaty. So they go back and they talk about the invisible hand, right? And they talk about all these concepts that come out of it. But he has written a treatise that is underpinned with morality, right? That business has some moral obligations. And so there is a group of thinkers out there that has taken elements of this and created their own amoral platform to go from. And I will tell you, if you play out this end game where what we have is we have businesses just accreting profit more and more, and you have a consumer class that can't buy anything, like at some point you've taken everything out of the economy, and you don't allow the people that you want to acquire your products the ability to acquire your products. Where does that lead you at the end? At the end, basically what's going to happen is, as a company, you're not going to be able to do anything. But the owners of those companies at the end are going to have a big pool of money, and they're going to have an unstable society. So I don't think, and now we've gotten into something that I didn't really want to get into at all.
I want to reel it back, because I think that
reel it back in.
So what we have here, I think the big topic is, ethics and morality. And I think that's a wider societal issue. And I think one of the big reasons why we see issues today is because of that. But it also comes back to us as developers. Because that is also similar creed is something that we get, kind of taught as well. I am still very much perplexed and angry that, for example, ethics in IT class I took was not mandatory. I think that should be mandatory, because there's a lot of the things, as you code them, how do they work? How should you kind of, approach the things, and how should you deal with that? And as I said, as Alim, as you mentioned, there's a lot of, or lack of, ethics and morals in our society in general, especially with kind of say the younger generation, in part because it was not passed down. So we need to think more about this, because this is not something that kind of we get from osmosis. If anything, we get kind of the opposite live for the moment. And eventually, that's kind of why we also get, when it comes to replacements, that CEOs then go and absolutely without any scruples, say to their staff, if you have fears about getting laid off because of AI, go talk to AI about it.
That was really disturbing and very tone deaf when I read that article. So
yes. So there's a lot more to it, and it's kind of also reminds me of a few years, or maybe almost a decade. I think there was, as the industry in America when it comes to coal was kind of slowing down, and there was, of course, a lot of the communities that were built around the coal mines and the coal industry were feeling the pain. The journalists were like, high and mighty and telling, to the coal miners who were kind of doing this for generations, just learn to code. And
so you bring up a good point, by the way, here, which is we have seen changes in different industries over the last 30, 40 years, where entire sectors of the economy have disappeared, right? For a lack of a more nuanced explanation, have disappeared. And what comes next? And I think this is something that's facing us in an existential way as software developers, as engineers, as creative people in a particular field. And there's been a lot of talk about, and I've seen articles also, and we may have had one or two of them here, with regard to the disappearance of jobs. Like, you don't need a marketer. I read that one recently by somebody who was a founder of a company that said, you don't need a marketing team. All you need is ChatGPT, right? And just figure out, the proper prompts to ask, apply those, and then see what works, and then double down on those things. Great. I think that's great advice in terms of how to get better at spotting a trend and then going with a trend, right? But I don't know that you don't need a marketing team. And, in one case, this might have worked for somebody in some very specific way, but could they have done better with a marketing team? That might be a truth too, right? So there are things here that just they're untested. You get some results, they look very positive, but they're not tested against some control. We are seeing more and more, though, that the natural replacement right now in the economy for using generative AI are software engineers. I think we saw an article recently where 9,000 Microsoft employees were laid off, right? And we're seeing that across the board with lots of other companies. Salesforce laid off some people also. I believe Duolingo laid off some people before, although they claimed that they didn't lay off anybody. It was just the contract workers, the translators that are, central to their product, that they're not using as much anymore. And again, we've seen we've seen these stories happening. It's funny to me, in not a ha-ha way, but in an ironic way, that the folks that are getting the short end of the stick, so to speak, the people that are being transitioned out, are the same people that are, in a sense, building these underpinning technologies. The folks that you really want or need to continue to make AI or these tools better are the folks that you're saying, here's the door. And that creates a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I don't know. I think Microsoft has said that what they're doing is they're not just laying people off. What they're really doing is they're re-emphasizing different practices, mainly like their AI practice right now and the cloud part of that practice. Although I believe that they also laid off a bunch of cloud people. So I'm not quite sure what skills they're looking for in this space. So here's the thing that I think comes back to us again and again on this, which is we're bringing up the point of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the hype. And we might want to talk a little bit more about the hype cycle and the success rates and the failure rates and what we've been seeing from actual studies. But the problem I think that we all have and we face is the questions like, what does this mean for me? Is this a space that I should stay in, or should I become a carpenter, right? And by the way, that was a real question that was given to me in 2001 with the first crash that we had in the .com crash. I had a team of really capable engineers, and then we had the crash. And there's some people that went out. There's one of the guys that ran the HR department in a tech company. He now has a landscaping firm, has had it for a number of years now, moved on to that. I had an engineer that came and told me, he said, I don't know what to do now. I think I'm going to go try carpentry. And I believe that's actually what he continues to do today. He had a PhD in computer science, and he left and became a carpenter because he was uncertain about where the world was going and what would happen. Now, what happened since 2001 was we had this boom in terms of technology, and a lot of careers got made and a lot of new positions were made. And there were people that were tech adjacent that ended up in tech firms and have done very well for themselves in the last 20 years. You would have thought like this would never have ended. Now we're seeing another inflection point. And now the question is what are the skills that are going to keep me valuable in place here? What can I be doing? What do I need to do? Who do I need to be in order to continue to have a career here? And what doesn't work? And I think this all comes back to things like, web applications, building web applications. Does Meteor matter anymore? Can we build application without a framework? And I have some ideas on that we can talk about later.
Yeah, let's look at it. I think to kind of get starting answering these questions and look kind of at the hype, or what we have to start look at it. What are the CEOs and the big decision makers? What are they seeing? And this is we have here these companies from Fortune. This article.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, CEOs and all these people are, especially for the big companies, are in the hype 100%. They think it's pivotal. If they don't implement it, they are dead. So they need to happen. Even if, for example, it's the data is showing that only 20% of these AI products deliver any return on investments. And even though that figuring out AI is daunting, but they still against it. It's a business imperative. It needs to happen, or we are dead, because this is the thing. And we have here, study or research from Radix, and I have picked up a few
Before you
graphs
go
that I
further,
want to
I want to
share.
ask you a question. I want to ask you, do you think they're thinking for themselves? No, seriously. Do you think this is just, I see my other colleagues doing this, I don't really see the benefit of it, but if I don't do it, I'm not relevant. Maybe it's going to have an impact on my share price. Do you think that they're thinking for themselves, or do you think they're just,
I think what they are doing is looking at the charts that we'll be seeing in a moment.
Yeah.
And I recently, that was a very nice quote, and it was from supposedly from a someone who was finance like for millionaires, and he told somebody he knew, "I don't wish you a 1 penny above 200 million." And saying that somewhere at that mark you lose contact with reality.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what, and that's kind of comes with it, because of just, when you deal with such a huge, companies and numbers.
Yeah.
The human mind is not meant to handle that, and it cannot comprehend the size. So people will just become numbers on the spreadsheets. The same thing with everything else, and then it's a fear of missing out, and or how will I look at the party with all my other CEO buddies and all that stuff if I don't do this? Will I be able to afford my next yacht? But then, if we want to go a bit facetious with that, so I think that definitely plays a role. But they are looking definitely, constantly on the data that's coming in. And that's what they are paid for, to kind of gather all the data, and based on the data they gather, make the best decision, for the company. So
I don't know if that's really the job for the CEO. I think the CEO's job is to figure out what the market is for their products and services, how they can best serve their customers, and head in that, and point the company in that direction. This is where we're going to go, because this is where the best opportunities are. I think. Well, I think honestly, I think a lot of them, there's imposter syndrome, because you have this job, you're told that you're the leader, you're told that you have, you're Moses on the mountain and you could see the promised land, and many of them like, what are you talking about? I can't see shit.
Well, if you don't have philosophy on how to kind of get that, and I think this has changed a lot. What used to be the position of CEO and what it kind of became, but that's for another discussion. But I think they're still looking very closely at some of the graphs that I'll be showing right now. And of course, the biggest thing always is the market size. How much is the market size, which is potential business right now? It's supposed to be like somewhere around 243 billion, and it will of course quadruple in 5 years according to all these predictions. Again, this is part of the hype. We've seen that with other many hype bubbles as well, that it's line go up, and it's predicted. So that's something that they are looking at. And you will see that in all these, global AI market sizes. It's getting in. It will be in over $1 trillion in sales, or AI-driven sales by 2032. That's why they when they talk about marketing, about sales, this is where AI comes from. They believe that this is going to really drive their sales, and they just put AI. They don't have to have any people, and it's magically their product is going to be sold worldwide. And of course, 72% of companies worldwide use AI or will use AI. And same thing with the market revenue. Going again up. But kind of going back now, where it's used, where does the company where in the company it's being
Mhm.
used the most. So of course, research and development and IT are the top.
Mhm.
Then customer service. This was actually quite surprising for me. I would expect that it would be much more pushed forward for customer service, and marketing, advertising, and
Mhm.
PR. Which if from the data we've seen or the studies we've seen previously, those are the places where I would where it was serious that it's most effective. But there might be some complaints about being able to kind of be or link emotionally with the people, while unless you have specialized AI, and that's another source of a lot of investments, that you are building your own models and specialized AI for research and IT.
Hey, listen, I think when you are a domain specific, when you're doing things domain specific and you're building your own tools, I think that makes a hell of a lot of sense, especially if you have the capital to do that, right? Because the thing is, let's be honest, like these generic large language models, they're generic. They're the average of everything, right? So if you expect to get an edge over your competition by using an average system, I think that there's something there that's a disconnect. It doesn't quite make a lot of sense. You're going to have to tailor it in a way so that it's very specific for your use case, so that you can benefit from it. And I think that's something that gets missed from the conversation sometimes. So
Yeah,
companies
but at the same time, Alim, as you pointed out, that's exactly what the CEOs, once they consult, know. And actually, we see a lot of the big companies investing heavy
Mhm.
money into their proprietary
Yeah.
models to do, which has other problems, because then the thinking is, oh, let's just dump all of our company data into it without any curation or cleaning up, and hope that we get something out of it, which oftentimes does not work out, as you said previously.
Yeah.
And I think here what I really want to put your attention to is number 2: how do organizations and leaders perceive AI?
Mhm.
Which is, which I think is really the main thing that we need to look at, or how it's going to tell the future. And the first one is, AI and machine learning are game changers. And I think that's kind of what drives the hype. This is a game
Mhm.
changer. This changes everything. If you do not implement this, you will be dead in the water in a few years, and you can close up your company.
Mm.
So, and then of course, it's AI is useful singling out opportunities using data. So data analysis, AI and machine learning are their most significant initiatives. So they put that as their top priority. So again, that's important for you to know that, okay, this is something that the companies will put in a lot of money. This is their top priority. And then they have let's go AI tools have a boosted productivity. They
Mhm.
have a defined AI strategy, and project increased in labor productivity from AI use is like at 40%. So there's still lots to go there. So I think this again underlines how companies and the decision makers are seeing the entire things, or AI in general.
Mhm.
So the hype is there, and it has
The
a
hype
lot
is
of
real.
support.
Well, again, I think that there is, and everybody can have their own views on this. I think that there is just a misperception of just how far it can go, and we see this every single time with the blockchain. It was going to change everything, and then it turns out that at the end of the day, there are really a handful of applications that it's really well suited for, and the rest of them, the experiments haven't panned out. I think we're going to see the same thing here, which is right now it's looking like a miracle. But eventually, what's going to happen is we're going to see that there's an outsized benefit for using it for very specific use cases. And then after that, not so much. And I'm not trying to pour water on it. So, I mean, this is the field that I've, dedicated money and time to. And I think that there's a promise here. But at the same time, what I believe is that this fear that's being created and this push that it's going to eliminate everybody's jobs. I don't know how that's a great selling point other than maybe to the top tier people, right, that are sitting in the decision making, that's saying, oh great, now our you know, our labor spend is going to be, you know, much smaller now, and we can keep our profits. Again, I think that's very short-sighted on the side of anybody that's running a company. It's kind of stupid to me.
I wouldn't necessarily say. I think this is the result of, I would say, you know, having blinders and just being focused on one thing, which, you know, for example, or, you know, with a lot of, you know, with startups, I'm going to a lot of these, you know, let's say function or events, and they are constantly, you know, hammering into you needs to be, you know, absolutely dedicated and focused, and you need to, you know, dream and, you know, eat, and everything needs to be about your company. There can be nothing else in your life except your company. And I think this definitely goes on on the higher ups in the corporations as well, even though this actually that should be quite the you know, I would say opposite, because my belief is that CEO should have, or management in general should have much more wider skills. That's. But again, I'm sidetracking. I just want to quickly finish here, and we'll probably get back to it if there might be some more opportunities. But here's also for small businesses. That's another big thing. It's not just, you know, big companies, and I would say in this case, small businesses also follow the hype. So we can see here that 30% are currently using AI or machine learning in some capacity. Same thing applies for my business, Literal Universe. We have machine learning when it comes to recommendations that we are putting in. Then in the next 12 to 18 months, 30%, you know, small businesses are planning to you know, put it in use, and then we have another 23% that are evaluating, and you know, the rest, which is meaning like 15%, so the small number doesn't really is not really sure what to do with it, or doesn't have any plans at this point.
Jan, when the survey talks about this, for instance, I have, you know, there's a company that I know that I'm very familiar with the people that work there, and we're customers of that company. They sell boat products, right? And they use AI, if you want to call it that, for their marketing materials. They use it to generate graphics, right? And they're finding it to be very effective for them because it's reduced the cost of having to pay an outside person to generate some of the stuff that they need. But it also allows them to produce, you know, more marketing materials like coupons and you know, flyers and things like that very quickly, and get them out. And the thing is, like, the lifetime of these you know, promotions is small. So when they're able to reduce their cost in terms of like putting something together and getting it out there, and then, you know, they have a promotion, a sale that lasts for a week, and now they need a new set of graphics because they don't want to use the same old stuff again, they can generate them. That's a use case where they're using AI, if you want to call it that. But I don't see them, or they're not using it for very much more than that. They do use it for customer letters to sort of generate something, but that's really as far as it's going. They're not mining data. They're not doing other things. So when we talk about these reports, I'm kind of curious to know what's allowed, what's included in those numbers. Is it something deeper, or is it use cases like that I just described?
I would say it's a mix, because of course the smaller companies, they have access to the only general models, so they will have that kind of usage, while the more, of course, bigger companies, they will have much more things you know, done specifically for them. And kind of want to the last two here, which is in general what people actually could expect here is, you know, how likely are we to trust a business that uses artificial intelligence? And I would say, you know, majority of people have no problem with it. So and even more than half, you know, of the customers actually expect that AI is going to make their customer experience better.
Sure.
Which I'm not sure might be a sideway disagreement about the telecommunication centers in India, Egypt, and Turkey for Germany and so on. So they are not happy with the service that's produced by this outsourcing, maybe. And
when I was at Speech Cycle, that's what we built. We built customer
yeah.
service agents, right? And the thing is, we didn't get rid of the agents for most of the companies. What we did was we covered what were called level 1 calls, which are the basic most common issues that you might face that we could resolve very quickly. And if it was something more custom, we moved it up. So the idea was that you as the agent didn't have to deal with, my internet is disconnected calls anymore, because 9 times out of 10 it was just, reset your modem and you're back online.
Have you tried to turn it on and off?
Right, exactly. So we did that, and we were very successful and it was very, very successful business, right? We did a very, very good job with it, especially we use a natural language dialogue. It was great, and most of the people that used it were not upset with it. The ones that got frustrated, we bubbled them up to a human being as quickly as possible. Once we detected frustration, we moved it on, right? So there are ways of doing this. And then what we said is, you are, a far more sophisticated, you have a far more sophisticated understanding of how this technology works as an agent. So you should handle the more complicated problems. And it was sort of, acknowledging that, we'll take care of that, 80% of the day that creates frustration for you as the agent, because it's like, come on, I just had 30 of these calls and I'm getting the same kind of problem again. To now it's like, oh, now there are things that require a certain amount of deep knowledge, creativity for me to be able to help you resolve your issue. And our understanding was that some of those agents were getting far more satisfaction from doing that than just doing the basic, I'm going to reset your box, right?
Yeah.
So yes, there are going to be some jobs that are going to get lost in that, but then it allows for a certain level. And I have to say that I don't think that there was a single call center that actually closed down when we did our deployments, because telecom is a shitty business. They have low customer satisfaction and there are always problems, right? So, they're always going to get calls. So in that case, it was like, okay, well, there are certain calls that we just couldn't handle before because we're dealing with all this other stuff. And now we can actually try to satisfy and keep those customers happier. But, there's a larger business issue at play, I think, overall, in that model where your customers are constantly calling you saying, I have a problem, right?
Yeah. So I hope that these, data kind of showed you what the CEOs and everybody is seeing.
Yeah.
And as we've covered previously, there is a lot of the hype, and even despite problems, we'll push ahead. And I kind of want to spend a little bit here on the problems, and this is probably what we'll see a lot in the future, a lot more, because we've kind of seen over the past month or so, starting like these articles started popping up, like this one, talking about AI fatigue, which shows that 46% of AI proof of concept fail, which I would say is like still relatively good number compared to some of the others where we have some of the other implementations that 80% fail. We kind of get to that. And of course, another interesting finding was here that the more frequent user of AI get more burnout, which is interesting, but at the same time, which is kind of connected to the next article, is that AI makes more mistakes, especially when it comes to if you're using how we use it in coding. So then we are thinking, oh no, why are you doing this mistake again? So why is that? And so that is constantly going on. There's maybe because of how much it's making mistake, and the humans have to go in and fix it. Then get more fatigue and more burnout. I could probably relate to that. And yeah, this kind of goes back. AI makes mistakes, and that then goes into the hidden cost and people getting rehired back for companies to fix the issues that the AI has made. So that's kind of, I think, what we'll be seeing more. But as Alim said, oh, you don't need you don't need a marketing team, or you don't need a developer team to build your product, or the vibe coding thing. That, especially if you want something a little bit more complicated, or something that's not standard and well known, then that's where developers will be needed, and that's where a lot of companies are going to run into problems. And and I think we'll see articles like these where oh, they wanted to save money with AI, and now they need to hire people to fix the mess that AI has made. And I think we'll see a lot of them, a lot of these articles, a lot more going forward. And I think we've mentioned already about 70 to 85% of Gen AI deployments don't really meet their desired return on investment. That might also partially be because the desired return on investment is much higher than they maybe wanted. But we'll see a lot of more of these articles indicating, oh, the hype is over, everybody now has buyer's remorse. But I would kind of, again, want you to remember all the projections, all the charts, and the article before that, which says that the CEOs are going to go forward with this hell and high water. Once you see these articles, I would say coming up, because this will be definitely coming more as we see more failures and all of those things. So that's my take on this. I think this has too much money invested in it. I think I have later on also an article just on how much on that, but I kind of cover that as one of the closing things, I believe.
Yeah, look, I mean, there are billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars that have already gone into this venture, this thing. I think one of the things that Jan had brought up before, Küster had brought up before, in terms of saying let's focus on this as a topic for the news for this week, is this hype cycle that we're looking at really sucks all the oxygen, sucks the money out of other opportunities, right? Everybody's spending, and all the VC companies, everybody's talking specifically about this. Nobody's talking about green tech anymore, right? Nobody's talking about, blockchain. There is a little bit, but it's all crypto. Nobody's really talking about that, right? There are, whether or not we're doing like pharma tech, if there's AI, what we're doing is, if it's AI and some other thing, we'll talk about it. But if it's just the thing in and of itself, not so much.
Yeah, this kind of brings us to, since it's the hype and everybody's pushing forward, there's a lot of disregard for, could say, personal space, if one of them could be, and or thing that, especially when it comes to generating images and movies, videos, all that stuff. But even when copyright. So Alim, you kind of brought this up. So kind of let's have this thing, because this is not something that you just have to think about as developers. How does this affect my code? But you have to also look at what else is happening in the AI ecosystem, because that might be indicating of how that is going to impact your code, or in this case, your ownership of a code.
Well, this is a very, very personal thing here, right? And I brought it up because I thought it was interesting. I don't know whether or not any developer really cares about this so much. Let me just say it really quickly, and then we'll move on, which is Denmark has actually like taken a look at this and said, when it comes to things like your own personal likeness, you now own a copyright on that, and that is yours to use, hold on to, lock away. Nobody can take it from you unless they, you know, they can't use it without your permission. And I'm not sure what the consequences will be in terms of, do they pay a fine or do they go to jail? I have no idea. I haven't gone very far into the Denmark copyright plan, but they're bringing up an issue, which is, you know, at what point, and especially since companies have been doing this, they've been sucking down everybody's works. There's just been a couple of court cases here that have been found in favor of the large companies that took people's copyrighted information, used it in an AI and said, well, it's transformative, so even though we took the entire thing, we consider it fair use. There was a time, by the way, where fair use meant like I get to use a paragraph in an academic data, right? In an academic paper for my you know, the work that I'm doing. And now it's become something entirely different. I'm not quite sure I understand what fair use is anymore. Fair use seems to be is like what I can get away with. So in terms of American copyright, it like I said, it used to be really clear that what that usage might be. It had to be very limited. There were the tests, and all of the tests had to be applied. I used to be very knowledgeable about this, but ever since the Millennium Act, the change in the copyright, and then the subsequent changes that have been happening since, it's been hard to keep track of, and it's not my area of expertise anymore. So yeah, it is interesting in the sense that that this, and I think people look at the American model more than they look at their own country's models, and I'm kind of curious to know how Europe might be looking at this. This is one article that I found with regard to how Europe is looking at, or at least one European country is looking at this. My question is Denmark part of the European Union, and do
Yes.
the laws that they pass there apply, or does the union have to adopt their own laws with regard to this?
No, every state has kind of their own laws, and there are like kind of, I could say, EU laws, but how it really is, it's just like a resolution that happens on the EU law, and then every country is responsible in implementing that in their own laws. So it's then a big mess, because of course every country does it a little bit differently. So it's not really that unified. But for example, just when it comes like to the fair use, for example, Czechia, we don't have fair use at all.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's something I recently learned as well from lawyers when I inquired about that. But also, like, kind of this got me thinking, and this kind of goes, with companies with AI gobbling the data. This has a lot of impact, of course, on all the picture, video. In my case, what interests me is, with books and text, but also think of open source. This has been an issue with open source even before AI. And it's like, here I'll share my code with you. And, the companies goes, your code, our code. So that's what's happening. And kind of related to that, we have, blockchain related two things. We have WorldCoin, which in a way is copywriting or putting your likeness and things, kind of identifying that you are human onto a chain or blockchain that you can use. They have now recently partnered, or the Story Protocol, which kind of has the ambition to be kind of like a repository of intellectual property ownership and everybody who has done what. So they kind of partnered together so that you can then, if there's like any intellectual property generated, then you can also kind of have your WorldCoin attached to it to prove that you are human. And the idea behind it is that, if somebody uses your IP, then you and everybody else who kind of contributed to it in some shape or form gets compensated for it. So
I'm going to blow this up for it was blown up for okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out to everybody that it says world proves you're human. I need a fucking blockchain to prove that I'm human. Really?
Yeah, well, it's
wow.
that's in the IT world. If you look at the internet, especially if we go with the dead internet theory, we'll have to kind of start proving ourselves. We have to kind of figure out how to prove that we are human, and you have that constantly. You have to prove that you are human. So that's we have all the captchas and everything. So that might become more and more, I think, an interesting concept going forward. How do you prove that you are human unless you meet physically? Who knows? Maybe this video or my likeness here has been shared. There's actually, and this goes back even 10 years or more.
Yeah.
I actually have maybe one of the first softwares that you can put on your webcam, and then you can appear as somebody else, or some animal or whatnot. It was a lot of fun back then. So this is becoming more and more issue, even though you might want to rage against the machine here.
I don't want to rage against anything, but I do realize I've been cursing a lot in this video. It's not something I normally do, and somebody might say, "Is Alim an AI this time around?" No, it's just I don't know. I've just been speaking a little too freely today. So, all right, listen. We've walked through all of this. We mentioned, by the way, that there has been some degree of failure in some of these projects. Do we have like more information on this, Jan, in terms of?
Yeah,
do we have numbers? Do we have examples?
Let's see. It depends on what their wide ranges of numbers. So it ranges between 40 to 80% of failure for AI projects.
Okay.
Saying that it wastes, billions of dollars, which is okay.
That's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Well, it's really.
Come on. Between friends, we could lose.
Well, it's all kind of questionable because as while you were a bit away, what I mentioned is there's sometimes maybe too big of expectations on return on investment. So they expect it's going to bring them billions of dollars from their millions of investments. Yeah, and then it maybe just brings $1 billion, and it only brought it in a freaking billion. We expected 8 billions. There's no return on investment, or not the one we expected.
This is my point that I made earlier to you, which is there's an opportunity cost on capital, right? If I take my money and I take all of my money and I say I'm going to bet on this one thing, then it means I'm saying no to a bunch of other things. And when that's true, that means other things that could have helped be productive, that it could have raised productivity, is, just a missed opportunity. I know that a lot of VC is like going to the casino, right? Let's be honest, like most of the VC investments that they make, they don't make it in terms of the project or the technology. VC venture capitalists themselves have come out and said, well, we typically bet on the people, right? Yeah. Because the rest of it is kind of unknown. And that, I think there is a huge misallocation of capital because of this.
Yes, to be more precise, in 2024, there was 131.5 billion investment, which is a 52% increase compared to 2023. And in the last 3 months of 2024, over half of all venture capital in the world went to AI companies.
Yeah.
Which, as you said, it just sucks the air out. And of course, then there is, in this article specifically, a bit of a complaint, that AI does not really perform some of the tasks it's supposed to. There's also a lot of what's called agent washing, where existing products are rebranded as AI agents or something like that, or they say it uses AI to kind of get the investment, get
Yeah,
on the hype.
Yeah.
And we have also scams like this one, Builder AI, that came up.
What was that about?
Well, it was like, oh, we have AI that builds your website, and instead it was an army of Indian programmers.
No.
Yes.
Listen, Indians have been accused, I've been accused of being a lot of different things, but being told that you're an artificial intelligence is really insulting. It's like, we have natural intelligence. What the hell?
Yeah, I think one of the news I read there, they actually were, the programmers there sometimes were annoyed that they had to wait to kind of simulate the,
Oh, really?
the results, to kind of simulate the AI working
Oh
with
my
some of
God.
the things. Not exactly sure how it kind of looked at work, but that's that. But Alan, to make it a bit worse, I just on the when we compare the crypto hype with the AI hype,
Yeah.
in back in the best days of crypto,
Yeah.
they could the companies could like make maybe 1 or 2 billion in a round, could raise up.
Yeah.
AIs can do 10 times that today.
What the fuck am I doing sitting here talking to you? Why am I not building an AI company right now? It's what can I like AI that that eliminates shoelaces? I don't know. I mean, something. Are they just throwing money away? Is that what's happening here? Are they just giving it to? This reminds me of I don't know if you remember pets.com.
Yeah, I remember the .com bubble.
Yeah. So the thing is, pets.com, if I remember correctly, during the first internet boom, came out and they did not have a business plan. They just did a pitch. We're going to sell pet food online. And their only asset was a sock puppet, right?
Yeah.
And when they went bankrupt, that was their asset. Was the sock puppet, the name and the sock puppet. And somebody acquired it. But like, is this where we are? Is that what you think?
Where we are at, Alim, is, as this article points out, that the US economy is essentially fused to the fate of AI. So if there's like any downturn or any issues with it, then it will have consequence for the US economy and the world, which for me is that AI has become too big to fail.
Yeah. So what are you guys doing in Czechia then? Like if America goes down, is that like the better economy to be in? Is it better to be in Czechia at that point?
No, it's unless you're retired and just going here for retirement, then it's perfect. But if you want to do anything except probably retirement, then stay away from Europe.
Well, but how do you make a living when AI's taking all your money and you don't like what do you do next? Where do you go? By the way, I don't believe AI is taking all the jobs. Again, I think like there's a lot of stuff being written. I think we have to be very, very careful about what we read. I think that there is a transformation in the economy right now of certain tasks going over. I think what we're going to find is that there's a limitation. If I can make the same ad that you're going to make, then neither of us have a competitive advantage, right? So I think that we are going to, be seeing things where that becomes a new normal of one of those technologies that are in the background that is powering your company. Some companies are going to say, well, we're powered entirely by it. God bless you. Go do what you want to do. And if you're successful, then, what can I do about it, right? There's very, very little there. But in terms of what I can do is I can learn how to use these tools. I can try to understand what the boundaries are and the limitations of them are. I'll use them as long as they're going to finance them, because quite frankly, a lot of these tools right now use a lot of power, compute, other things. And I believe what we're seeing in terms of the economics, in terms of like the subscription prices that we're paying, is that they're way too low to be able to sustain those companies as a business. And eventually either they're going to consolidate or they're going to raise prices or some combination of that. and it's really only going to be accessible to, those people that really want to have it. It's I can use GIMP today, right? I used to pay for Photoshop. I used to have to install it and so on, and now the subscription service is there, and it's relatively cheap, but it's too expensive for my use case. I don't need a monthly subscription to something that I'm only using once in a while when I can use free Canva for that purpose, right? So I think we still have to see what the business models are for these firms when they finally come to fruit. But right now they're being carried by investors, because they're trying to get growth.
And the state as well.
Yeah, and they're trying to get growth, and they're trying to get penetration, and they're trying to get adoption. So once we get to that, but there's going to be, like many other things, there are going to be points where what I would love to see, and nobody's publishing any of this as far as I know, and maybe if you've seen it and can share it, I would love to see it, Jan. But I have not seen any information yet about what the fall off is in terms of people that are using a tool that, like, how long are they using it? How often are they using it? And when do they stop using it? Right? What's the customer lifetime at ChatGPT? Is it that every customer they've acquired is still using it? They don't want to tell you that right now because they still need to get money, right? They're not going to tell us that. But I'll guarantee you, with every tool, every product you've ever used, there's been, unless there are a handful of them that you use day in, day out, but the rest of them you've used for a while, it's been good, it's been a good ride, but now I'm either moving on because it's not as productive as I found it to be, or it's not worth the price that I'm paying for it. And am I saying anything that you don't know or haven't experienced? Am I saying anything that isn't the lived truth to you in that sense? Jan?
No, that's perfect.
Right?
We don't know.
Yeah, it'll at some point it'll get there, right? We're going to get to it, and we're going to see what it is. And at some point, we're going to say, even with all the competing tools out there, somebody's going to say, well, I use Claude as my code co-pilot, right? Co-editor, my pair programmer, however you want to call it. Or in the worst cases, it's like, yeah, I don't program at all. Claude's my programmer, right? So depending on the level in which you're using it, that might be the case. But other people are using Gemini, they're using ChatGPT. I have a colleague of mine that he does all of his vibe coding with ChatGPT. He uses, Claude. He uses ChatGPT. So we're going to still, I think it's still very early days to kind of figure out like where this is going and how it's going to go. I think if, for me, watching how the world has changed over the last, 30 plus years in this field, this is just yet another set of tools, and I have to kind of figure out which is going to be the most productive for me to use, and then just kind of like jump in and use it to the best that I can. But I can't worry too much, or I shouldn't worry too much about, am I going to lose my job? Is this relevant? Am I relevant anymore? I think you are relevant. I think all developers are still relevant because they offer creative solutions to things. The minute you start, and I think this goes back to that research paper that Küster had brought in, the MIT paper, about using these tools to replace your creativity, then dulls your creativity. I think we need to be aware of that. And I think the way we stay creative is in our having real experiences with the world and with things in the world and with each other, and having the ability to have these soft skills where we can understand what the other is asking. We're going to see how this all pans out, but that to me is where this is and where it's going and what we can do about it.
Yeah, that's kind of want to kind of finish off. What we'll see, or what we've seen already, is that there's going to be firings when we'll see that the company sort of got it and hired you back. But going forward, especially one of the things when I talked about in the article about education that I showed a bit back, was that you really need to work on your creativity, on your not just like creativity, but on your what is it called, critical thinking, and generally be curious, which I think, and be engaged and interested, which just you watching it, being here, being interested. What is the news? What's going on? just and this, audience here watching us, you've already made or you are very well on your way in that direction. And I'm not going to, mince my words, but I think a lot of developers are not going to make it, because those are the developers who just, go to their job, and beyond that, just getting the paycheck and just coding. They are not curious or interested. I've learned my, framework, and I don't care beyond that. I don't care about anything else that's happening in tech, unless my boss forces me to. I don't care what's the news, unless there is some breaking change that I need to address and change in our company code. Beyond that, I don't care what's happening with the open source world or anything like that. So that's that kind of developer, I think, is not going to be too long for the world, and is going to have, I would say, a lot of trouble. So it's going to be, I would say, potentially there's going to be a cleanser of the industry that unless you have kind of those qualities, those interests, then in a way, this industry even isn't for you. That's I think that's just there's a lot of people who saw just the money are going to have the trouble of kind of keeping up with those things, unless they kind of rededicate themselves or really focus on hunting the money. And in that case, they will move into prompt engineering and all that stuff.
I think it's fine for people to hunt for money, right? I mean, the thing is, like, people have to make a living, and they're going to try to maximize what they can. I don't fault anybody for that. I think you're right about making sure that you stay curious, because that's going to be your edge, right? Staying curious, staying creative. Those are going to be the things that are going to help you survive and maybe even thrive, when things are changing. And things are really changing right now, and it's very confusing for a lot of people. The road is not clear to me personally, right? It might be clear to you.
It never is.
I don't know. What?
It never is. It's one thing I've learned. It's best with all of these recommendation, or do this, what to do, or what we see with the articles here right now, this is how we can fix it. It never is clear, and it's different for everybody. So you have to my general recommendation is listen to all the advice, but don't take them too seriously, and always take into account your own personal and how you see things. And definitely there's going to be go ahead.
Yeah, what I think is really funny, if you really pull back a little and look at it, is before we had the AI, we were going towards no code, and then things like Zapier and Make and so on, we're talking about like process automation. And there are lots of companies that were out there that were doing things like, okay, and I was working on this too, was when we get an employee in their HR tools, for instance, they have these automations now where when you get hired by somebody, there is an automatic onboarding. Like, you get hired, and immediately, like, a process runs that then goes to operations to configure your laptop, right? And it gives you the rights to the different resources, right, depending on the department that you got hired to, right? And so the operations folks, all they have to do is, oh, this goes to Jan Küster. I'm going to take this over. I'm going to drop it off at his desk. And now, instead of spending a day setting him up, right, it's already done, pre-configured, and so on. He's got his rights and all of that. And then, HR also gets like, oh, he's got to have, a payroll account, right? And he's got to have these benefits and all of these things that normally an HR person would sit down and package and put together for you, gets done automatically. We've been on this automation road already with these tools, and they're still there, right? Zapier is still there, Make is still there, and so on. Now, if you notice, what happened is AI came in, and now we have agentic. And what's it doing? It's the same thing that we were doing before. Is we're still doing this. We're trying to figure out how to automate certain workflows to, make our operations better, make things work better, and so on. I don't think that it's necessarily solving entirely new problems. I think what we're doing is we're just applying this thing to problems we were already finding ways to solve. And now it's like, oh, look, it's sexier, it's better, we've got agentic, you know?
Yeah.
It's like we still have to write agents, we still have to write connectors now. By the way, you know, Zapier has hundreds of pre-made connectors that you could, you know, block together to create a pipeline. And now we're telling them, oh, now we have to have it like AI driven instead. It's like, come on, like, really? We're solving the same problems over and over again in just different ways, and we're spending money on it. I think we need to your point, there was another article that you had mentioned where it's like, you know, sometimes there are simpler solutions, simpler models, simpler, you know, ML models that you can use. You can use a, you know, regression analysis. You could use a k-means or something. You don't need an LLM to do some of these things. And I think like having that kind of insight is really important. A lot of, I don't know, I think people love gravitating towards the shiny object. I do. But it's, I'm being honest about it. I mean, like, it's shiny, it's new, it's great. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you have to ask yourself as a business person, you know, at the end of the day, are there better solutions that can do the job better without all of this complexity, without all of this cost? What is it that I'm doing that I need to do this? In some cases, my process doesn't need to be automated because it's 3 steps, and the cost of automating it is really not going to pay off for the next 100 years. So why do that? Right? Yeah, you can automate, but really, do you need to? I think these are practical questions that we need to make sure that are being asked. And you as a creative behind it need to be able to answer. And honestly, I like to be able to go to a business person and they say, I hear AI is going to solve my problem. Like, no, all you need is a freaking website. You know, it's all you need. You need a website and a thing to capture an email so that you can contact people. You don't need AI for that, right? I think we need to be able to have these honest conversations, because I think people get bamboozled. They see the shiny object, and it's there. All right.
Any last thoughts on the AI bubble?
I think Küster is right. We are in a bubble. I think there, you know, the marginal benefits that we're seeing that are coming are incredibly marginal at this point. I don't see anything that's knocked my socks off in the last 6 months. Has anything really knocked your socks off? Maybe like we're seeing more coherent videos, longer coherent videos being put together. But is it knocking my socks off? I don't. For me, no.
I'm having a lot of fun with some of them, like you know, the Yeti vlogs or the Stormtrooper vlogs, but it's not something that, you know, I am, you know, overly crazy. I think it creates a lot of additional problems and adds to the to the societal issues, which is going to come to. And I think, as we've demonstrated through this, it's a bubble. It's a big bubble. It's also kind of merged into everything else. So in a way, it's too big to fail. Plus, with countries, there's the fear that, you know, if we don't invest a lot of money into this and win, then, you know, the other guys are going to do it. So definitely, it's going to stay. It's going to shape things as I've covered, but I
think you do need to keep up, right? I think you do need to keep up. It's like, you know, it's like, well, yeah, my donkey and my cart get my food to the market, you know, very well. But, you know, the truth of the matter is, like, if everybody else has got a pickup truck, you're going to be losing that race, right? It's just not going to work out in the long run. By the way, Min has, hey, Min, it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Min has an observation. We need AI to fight AI with spams or contact forms. So we're, even with our simple website, we're probably going to need like some tools at the back end. And you're right. There are going to be places.
It's already happening in some.
But if you don't, but here's the thing, man. If you don't have a website to begin with, like, let's just start with a website. You know, if you have no traffic, you know, the spam is not that much of an issue yet. So let's just start with what we need, and then let's figure out what tools we need to add to it afterwards to make it better, right? And in some cases, it will be AI. In some cases, not so much.
Yeah, well, worst case with all of this is that AI is just going to be on the internet and humans are going to abandon it because you won't want to be on X when everybody around you is just an AI arguing with each other and you're the only human there.
That's not the case right now. I'm not on X anymore. So
well, it's right now it's actually funny. Some of the people who have the big followings that I listen to or follow have kind of mentioned how they can notice AI and automation. So one of them, who is quite a bit cheeky, made a nice comparison that if you at early on say, for example, I hate pancakes. Pancakes are the worst. And there's like a pancake versus waffles war going on. Then that the AI is going to, or at least the old one that was used. Not sure if how much it's going on, but it's going to categorize you that you're anti waffles. And next time when you paste, these blueberries, waffles, pancakes were great. And then the comments from that are going to be, why do you hate pancakes, you pancake hater, and so on. So it's you can recognize the automation there quite easily.
So Min says that his websites have almost no traffic except the traffic which comes from AI. So Min,
that internet theory is here.
Well, Min, listen. It says, and then he says it's so crazy. So I will say, listen, don't complain. You're getting some traffic, number one. Put some ads up there so that way you can make some money from them, number one. And number two, if that's happening, can you get them to like go down your funnel and buy stuff from you? My view is like, if people want to spam you with AI, like make it costly to them in some way.
This actually, on this topic, just to close this up, there just recently was a blog post from Cloudflare that they will be, or they are implementing some sort of like microtransactions and other things that you can put for AIs to access your content and whatnot.
Yeah. But see, we have to be like human creative here, right, to figure this out, right? So that's a good thing. By the way, we've talked a lot today, and probably like if there were 10 of you online when we started, there's probably only 2 now. I get it. We've been beating this horse a lot, but if you enjoy us putting these things on, showing up every Friday, well, now in the future it's going to be Thursdays, to talk to you and share what we've learned, and share that with you. Give us a like, and at least give the episode a like. All right, and we'll move on. Jan, let's just get back down to where we go, and let's make it a little tighter now going forward, because we've spent a lot of time here. It's been an hour and a half, so let's try to wrap this up with some Meteor news that we still have to share.
So very quickly, we have only a few items, relatively speaking. There has been an article from Echo about the top 15 best devs in MeteorJS development. You might recognize some familiar faces there. It's
I know in my case they're wrong. I'm not one of the best devs. I barely write much code right now, and I haven't built anything in the last 3 months with Meteor. So MeteorJS.
I suspect it's a bit AI generated a little bit, because it also promotes their own services. But it's actually a good list of influential people in Meteor. So definitely it's a good starting point. And you might see some new faces as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things,
MeteorJS, right? Meteor, we're
yeah.
going to be like in the search terms with like asteroids. MeteorJS.
MeteorJS. So definitely, check it out. But one of the things it says there, these people are, inaccessible or super expensive to hire and everything. Not true. You can go to mycall.com /storyteller page if you want to talk to me about any issues that you have with, MeteorJS or any of the related technologies or packages from Meteor community packages and so on. My calendar is open. I have quite an open space, so you can reach out to me or anywhere else. And I think that applies for Jan Küster as well, though he might be a bit more busy than me. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out on that. So some announcements. We have first talks for Meteor Impact 2025 conference. There are some talks from me, but we also have talk from Radoslav Miernik, and he will be talking. I'm super excited about this one. Deep dive into Meteor's reactivity model. So
yeah,
that's that. We also have signups open now via Luma, and you can donate to the conference if you so choose to. It will be very much appreciated. Another thing that we have, and that's coming back, is the community survey.
Nice.
It's been quite a few years. I've got inspired by the Node.js community survey with a lot of the questions and added to it. So check it out. Please fill it out. I'm super excited to see where you are guys from, what languages you speak, and how are you using Meteor, and what would you like to see and focus on. So definitely check that out. From the development side, we have interesting pull requests starting up from Harry Adel, who is bringing the like collection extensions into core. Why is this such a important thing? Is that this would allow you to do the after or before insert, after insert hooks. So if something happens with your collection, you can have these hooks, and this has been something that has been issue for a few packages trying to manage this, and I'm using something similar in my own projects, and it would be nice to have like an official hooks implementation. Has been in a talk a while, and looks like Harry took it into his own hands to propose a solution. So for the next patch release of Meteor, which will be 3.3.1, there will be Cordova 14 update. So for everybody who's in Cordova, this will be super important so that you can have your compatibility with Google Play and all the other things guaranteed. And we also have the latest Node 20 version. And on Tuesday, on July 15th, there will be a security release, and I suspect that that will also land in the patch release, which will probably come shortly afterwards if all the other patches are finished as well. And finally, to end up on something maybe blast from the past, I've decided to play a little bit with AI and some other things, and have it upgrade our accounts UI CSS so it looks closer to the current MeteorJS style, and it removes things like Internet Explorer 8 compatibility, tweaks and hacks, and it's much more modern.
Is this evolved from the CSS episode we did last week?
Yes, that's where I got the idea, and that's why I did it on my Monday stream. Also, I have moved from less to pure CSS, which should help with potential performance as well. Because and another big thing is you can now change how it looks like, or once this gets merged. So because we are using, or I'm using the CSS variables there, so you can change how it looks completely and customize it to be closer to your website if you are using it. So that's a old Blaze component. There are a few more things that we might tweak and improve, and I'm hoping that we can probably get some of the other old Blaze components or kind of compatibility review in the future as well. So
can we go back to Cordova for a minute?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you something. So I know that there is a Cordova update, but my question to you is, weren't we talking about switching to capacitor or something else?
Yes, that's still on the roadmap, but in the meantime, the team is dedicated to providing updates so that, because sadly, Google Play Store and other, they are constantly upping up their requirements, and that's why we need the Cordova updates in the meantime.
Okay, yeah, because I was under the impression that Cordova was like officially deprecated, but there's a community team that's kind of managing it right now, but it doesn't seem to. I thought that based on earlier episodes that we had done, that the idea was that if we really want to stay with something that's going to be current and modern, we need to switch over. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Do we have a sense as to when we might see action on the Cordova replacement?
You would have to ask Nacho or somebody else from the core team. It all depends on what they decide will be the next priority after Meteor 3.4.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. All right. Okay, guys, if you have not done so yet, we invite you to subscribe to the channel, stay abreast of what's happening, and be part of this community. We'd love to have you. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. We appreciate you being part of our community and hope you'll continue to do that. All right, Jan, what do we have next? Are we wrapping up?
Just a few last reminders wrapping up.
Okay.
I want to remind everybody that my startup, Meteor Universe, has launched a few weeks back. You can catch up on the launch with following the QR code, or you can go to the website, meteoruniverse.com. And if you are interested in supporting the project, we have a limited time lifetime membership. So that's until the end of month or until the first 30 ones are sold. So we have made some sales and we have some exciting updates coming up, including related to AI as well. But that will be probably in August earliest.
Very good.
And once again, Meteor Impact is coming up in September. Go to the webpage, impact.meteorjs.community. Sign up, submit your talks, workshops, and everything. We have some more interesting announcement coming up soon. Of course, I'm not going to tell you all the secrets at the same time. Make sure to spread it out.
Sure.
And that's it. Except we have.
Okay, folks. That's our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and let me get our faces back up here, and we can drop this now, and we will see you again next week. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thursday.